The date, July 26, 2020. To some degree, we've all been socially distanced and quarantined away from the whole of society since March 22nd. 2020 started off like all of the years that preceded it. No big deal. New Year's resolutions, declarations, affirmations, increase in gym memberships around the world, etc., as everyone began their new diet and workout regimen. By and large, I've heard 2020 being touted as the year of clear vision. And in many ways, that's exactly what it has shaped up to be. It's been a year of extreme clarity and revelation. COVID-19 has had some profound psychological and social effects. Studies indicate that the stress and anxiety, fear of contagion, depression, and insomnia have all been heightened. Furthermore, isolation, uncertainty, chronic stress, and economic difficulties are all undoubtedly leading to the exacerbation of domestic violence, substance abuse, a variety of psychiatric disorders, and even increased suicide cases. And if that's you, if I'm describing you, or someone you know, I want you to know that we're lifting you up in prayer. But in addition to that, I encourage you to please reach out for professional help. "2020 has also exposed the self-centeredness and greed in our society, starting with the initial toilet paper drought at the onset of the pandemic, and the limits imposed on how much bottled water we could purchase at a time. What about the hoarding of disinfectants and hand sanitizers? And more recently, the premature reopening of cities and businesses, which caused a relatively contained pandemic to spiral out of control, thus resulting in more infection and even more death. All of these things were the result of self-centeredness and greed. 2020 has exposed quite a bit. We've seen how African Americans are being affected disproportionately due to the lack of resources and access to health care. And last but certainly not least, the revelation and confirmation that by and large, Black lives don't really matter as much as other lives, as continually proven by the murdering of unarmed Black men, women, boys, and girls at the hands of those sworn to serve and protect them. Indeed, 2020 has forced us to grapple with the ugliness of humanity, whether we were willing participants or not. Full stop. We've had an overabundance of time for self-reflection, and for some of us, that's been an amazing opportunity of a lifetime. However, if we're not careful, too much self-examination, absent from God, can quickly turn into being overly critical of ourselves, and you compare where you are in life to where you thought you would be. And that can be an unhealthy practice that slowly leads us into a cycle of depression and self-hatred. Here's the thing. Your self-talk needs to be discipled. If people said to you what you allow you to say to you, you wouldn't tolerate it. But because it's you, I know, I'm not exempt either. I've had so much time on my hands that I'm not only acutely aware of my internal flaws, but I've commenced to detailing my external ones too. Like how one of my eyes are more squinty than the other one. Or how I could use a tinge of Botox right here in this area. And don't even get me started on what I need to do with these teeth. 2020 has revealed a lot. Not only for us as a nation, but individually. And I have a strong sense, hence the reason for this video, that many are starting to lose sight of just how dope they really are. So I want to use the remainder of this video to remind you of your dopeness.
Shadrach Rory Creative Content.
That's a whole lot of love. A whole lot of love. Yes, sir. That's a whole lot of love. We got a lot of love.
Did you know that in your lifetime you'll produce enough spit to fill up 2 swimming pools? Man, I'm dope. I should probably begin by defining what I mean by dope. By dope, I'm not referring to the substance that was strategically poured into the black community and then used to criminalize them, thus leading to a brand new slave class called the industrial prison complex, complete with billionaire investors and judges on their payroll. It was President Nixon's War on Drugs campaign that led to new mandatory minimum prison sentences and the overall high rates of incarceration in the Black and Latino communities. Later on, Nixon's right-hand man, John Ehrlichman, revealed in an interview what people of color already suspected. He said the real enemy was never really drugs or drug abuse in the first place. The real enemy was black people in general and hippies who opposed the war. I digress. By dope, I'm not talking about this brother right here. He's a dope. He's the opposite of cool.
Bruh.
Yeah. Now that's what I'm talking about right there, brother. Now he's dope. Cool. So confident. Unique and self-assured. He couldn't care less what his critics have to say about him. Love him or leave him. It's all good. Who is the man that will risk his neck for his brother, man? Shit. Can you dig it? Who's the cat that won't cop out when there's danger all about? Shit. Right on. You see, this cat Shed is a bad watch your mouth. What? I'm just talking about Shed. See, that's our problem right there. Anytime you start talking about yourself, somebody wants you to hush. But you gotta learn how to celebrate yourself. I know you've probably been told, like I have, that you're being arrogant when you highlight positive attributes about yourself. And I agree that there is a tendency to take it all the way left, where you tiptoe over into being overly confident, like you're better than everybody else, and thus leading to the mistreatment of everybody else. But that doesn't have to be the case. Allow me to show you how to do it. The old school songwriter, not Isaac Hayes, by the way, I'm talking about the song that's attributed to King David. He gives us an example of how to be grateful for who you are without being sedity. Smack dab in the middle of praising God and giving him accolade for his omnipresence and omniscience, that is to say, his everywhereness and his all-knowingness, look at what he says to God. Psalm 139, 13 and 14. He says, "For you created my inmost being." He's literally saying, my organs and my kidneys. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Kind of like a seamstress putting patterns together for a fresh new design. He's saying, you're responsible for who I am. You're responsible for all this loveliness. You're responsible for all this handsomeness. Look at verse 14. He says, I praise you, that is, I hurled compliments your way. Why? Because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. That word fearfully is yare. It means to be afraid, to inspire reverence and awe. In other words, when you see me, something in your heart ought to go pitter-pat for God. That word wonderfully is pala. It means to be distinguished, to be distinct, unique, different from others. It means to be dope. He says your works are dope, and I know it full well. I'm convinced of the dopeness firsthand. When I look at me, I see the handiwork of God in me. I see the creativity and the intricacy of God. Okay, so how do I appreciate my dopeness in a healthy way? I'm glad you asked. The old school songwriter just showed us how. Watch this. You need an I praise you because I mentality. In other words, when you look at yourself and count up the things that make you you, it ought to cause you to throw compliments at God. God, I praise you because I innovate instead of imitate. Throw a compliment at God. God, I praise you because whatever I decide to do with my mind and my hand, within 2 or 3 months, I'm excelling at it. Throw a compliment at God. God, I praise you because I have quick reflexes which assist my athleticism. Throw a compliment at God. I praise you because I'm still here. Throw a compliment at God. See, the way the world is set up, it's set up to challenge your dopeness at every turn. But you got to know who you are through God's eyes. And if he says you're dope, then guess what? You know. Did you know that there are just under 60,000 miles of blood vessels in your body? That equates to 2 complete trips around the earth and some miles left over for a one-way trip from America to Africa. You don't need to come back. Why would you come back? I'm dope. Your most basic humanity affords you the right to make that declaration. Man, I'm dope. The fact of the matter is that you won a contest not too long ago that single-handedly legitimized your humanity, thus bestowing upon you dope status. Studies show that you beat out between 40 million and 500 million spermatozoa in the race of a lifetime. What was the grand prize? An opportunity to exist in the Imago Dei, the image of God, with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities that come along with that. I'm talking about the right to unconditional respect and decency no matter what decisions you make along the way. I'm talking about the privilege to decide your own fate because you have free will. I'm talking about the responsibility to steward God's creation well, including but not limited to animals, the natural resources, the environment, yourself, and other human beings. Psalm 8, 3-9. When I observe your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you set in place. What is man that you remember him? The Son of Man that you look after him? You made him little less than God and crowned him with glory and honor. You made him Lord over the works of your hand. You put everything under his feet, that is to say, you gave him authority over the sheep and the oxen, as well as the animals in the wild, the birds of the sky, and the fish of the sea that pass through the currents of the seas. Yahweh our Lord, how magnificent is your name throughout the earth. The truth of the matter is God invested within us certain inalienable rights, privileges, and responsibilities and made us with non-diminishing value, a value that's intrinsic and inherent within the things He created. The first compliment God ever gave His creation was that it was good. Before we ever accomplished anything, God says we were good. Watch this. Solely on the basis of our existence. Oh, I'm helping somebody today. Somebody needs to hear this. You're good. That's it. You exist. You're good. That's it. I know you may have made mistakes. I'm not declaring you're sinless. Don't get it twisted. If you were that good, you wouldn't need Jesus. Let's just be clear. All have sinned and fall short of God's glory. But up underneath all those mistakes and bad decisions and missteps and failures, the goodness that God affirmed in you from the beginning is still intact. How? Because God assigned it to you. The world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away. Did you know that you're taller in the morning than you are at night? Studies show that throughout the day, the cartilage between your bones slowly compress, resulting in you being a centimeter shorter by the time you put your PJs on and hop into bed. Man, I'm dope. Now let's address the elephant in the room, because there's a new iteration out, a new level of dopeness that I want to tell you about that you may in fact be missing out on. It's Dope-ness 2.0. Let's go back to the Reshith. That is the beginning or the inauguration of God's creation. He walks us through the lights and how they should work, how the water should work, how the fish and animals should work, how the vegetation should work. And finally, on the sixth day, verses 26 through 31, God creates two people, two humans, calls them together and tells them to radah. That is, to reign, to rule, to dominate even. He says you have dominion over the earth, the fish, the birds, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Not only that, but he says, I've given you every plant yielding seed, every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. I have given every green plant for you. And God blesses them, and God says to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Radah. Unfortunately, like humans tend to do, they felt that God was withholding something from them, and it wasn't fair. They thought He didn't give them enough. And truth be told, there's something still lurking within us that craves and desires access to more than God has apportioned us to have. You got a wife, you still want another one. How many cars you need? How many bank accounts you got? And don't get me started talking about slavery. There's something inside of us that doesn't just want to reflect God, but it wants to be God. The pursuit to be God is what got Adam and Eve in trouble in the first place. They were already like Him in that they were created above everything else created. But they wanted more. And in pursuing more, they compromised what they had. They lost access to their home, intimate fellowship with God, a level of intimacy with one another. They had to put clothes on. They lost access to eternity. And ironically, God didn't explicitly revoke their dominion and authority over the fish or the birds or the things that crept on the earth. He doesn't take away their plants, their trees, the fruit, their food, or any of their responsibilities. They didn't lose their authority in that sense, but it certainly and significantly compromised it. The very thing that they had done to God was being done to them. The things that was under their command rebelled against them, like they rebelled against God. Their bodies rebelled against them. Their children rebelled. Their love and passions rebelled. The ground rebelled. The animals rebelled. There's a cinematic cliche that you may have seen a few times, if you like movies at all. There's a bad guy running from the police. Perhaps he just stolen something like money or jewelry or some expensive weapon. And now he's making a mad dash for the border, trying to get to the next town or the next state or even the next country in some cases. Why? Because he knows that if he can get beyond the cops' legal jurisdiction, then he'd be untouchable, and the things he stole would be his forever. In this cinematic cliche, once the bad guy makes it out of reach, he'll stand there on the border of the town and taunt the police. While the police can only watch in devastation at him gloat because it would be illegal for them to cross over into territory that they're not authorized to be in. Similarly, that's how the devil did humanity. He tricked us and stole our intimacy with God. He stole our eternity with God. And no matter how hard we tried to get it back, we couldn't. We couldn't earn it back. We couldn't be good enough to get it back. We could only stand on the edge and look at him while he taunted us. That is, until Jesus, the perfect man, came on the scene and secured jurisdiction that he also shared with us. Watch this. On the condition that we believe what he said about himself and what he did. It's the next iteration of authority. It's Dope-ness 2.0. Look at what the writer of Hebrews says in chapter 2, verse 7. The writer of Hebrews references those same song lyrics that we see in Psalm 8. In response to questions around Jesus' humanity and supremacy to all creation, the writer says, "But there is a place where someone has testified." He's speaking of what we know today as Psalm 8. "What is mankind that you are mindful of them? A son of man that you care for him? You made them a little lower than the angels, and you crowned them with glory and honor, and put everything under their feet. In putting everything under them, God left nothing that is not subject to them. Yet at present," now he's throwing shade now, "yet at present, we don't see everything subject to them." Let's shade itself. Verse 9. "But we do see Jesus, who was made lower than the angels for a little while, now crowned with glory and honor because he suffered death, so that by the grace of God, he might taste death for everyone." Skip down to verse 14. "Since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is, the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death." He's increasing jurisdiction now. Skip down to verse 18. "Because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he's able to help those who are being tempted." Whew, that was a mouthful. Hold on. Now give me a minute. So what does it all mean? Here's the short of it. Jesus walked in our shoes so perfectly, without any mistakes, without any missteps. And in doing so, he made it possible for us to stand up. Now we can be more dope than we've ever been before. We can have dominion and Dope-ness 2.0. How? By simply believing in him. There is a new level of dopeness awaiting, a new identity, some new power, some new authority, some new individuality that far exceeds what we initially had. Initially, we had access to natural authority, but no jurisdiction in the spiritual realm. Now we have supernatural authority because of the work of Jesus. Get off that old operating system and be upgraded to a new and more improved, more robust final iteration of dopeness. Did you know that a tooth is the only part of the body that can't repair itself? Man, I'm dope. All right, finally, here are 7 things that you can do that I found helpful for me when I get into a funk and begin to lose sight of how dope I actually am. Number 1, feed your spirit. Read what God says about you and how He says that we should be navigating this life. Pray. Talk to Him open and honestly. Number 2, enjoy some entertainment. Entertainment has a way of lifting your spirit. Enjoy some comedy, some lighthearted movies, some books, or play some games. Laughter is like medicine. Number 3, listen to old music. It doesn't even have to be good music, just something that's sentimental, something that pulls you back into a time where things were less complicated. Number 4, get some rest. Get away with no agenda. Let your mind wander. Take some time to recenter yourself. Don't underestimate the power of rest. Number 5, serve somebody. You'll be surprised at the level of healing that takes place when you decide to serve someone other than yourself. Volunteer at a local food pantry, a nursing home, a children's home or hospital, a church, or some community events. Serve somebody. Number 6, take care of your body. Treat yourself. A 2016 report estimated that LeBron James spends $1.5 million per year on his body. They say LeBron treats his fitness and health as an investment. You may not have LeBron James's money, but you can work out. Place value in self-care. Get a haircut, a manicure, a pedicure. Go see a chiropractor. Take a bath. Get a massage. Take care of your body. Number 7, last but certainly not least, seek professional help. Go vent. They're paid to listen. You can even find free services. The professionals have strategies that will help you cope during this difficult time. Huh? What? Did you know that your hearing decreases when you overeat? That man ain't lying when he say he can't hear you. Give that man a break. Man, I'm dope.
That's a whole